Here's the thing, like, do Penn State fans really believe that they're about to put up 68 on Iowa? Because I mean, that was the pace of that they were scoring at. But look at how they were scoring. Okay, so they got the good field position off the Spencer Petras interception that turned into a touchdown, and then they had two other pretty good drives. And we've seen it already against Maryland. We've seen it at times with Iowa State this year, and honestly, with just in various kind of spots early on in games where Iowa is a little bit susceptible early on because they need to make their adjustments on defense, and opposing offenses can move the ball pretty well against them. But you want to know what doesn't set up your offense to do well when your backup quarterback comes in for his first series. So from the field goal that Penn State hit, Iowa's touchdown drive to Penn State getting back on the field, over 5 minutes of game time had elapsed, which means probably about 10 minutes of real time had elapsed. You have that's a big window to at least draw something up. All right, how do we make him comfortable? How do we get Traquan Roberson to sort of at least settle into this game and then start competing and sort of just get more and more put on his plate as the game goes on? Well, the first snap of the game, he fumbles his very first snap. Okay, maybe that's obviously a little bit of jitters. Iowa's crowd is fired up because they just put points on the board, and they're starting to smell blood with Clifford out of the game. And then what happens? 3 straight false starts. Okay, now the Iowa crowd is going berserk. You're backed up near your goal line, and there's just nothing you can do. That offense got derailed on that possession. So now you have one throwaway possession where you're giving Iowa's crowd even more reason to be loud, because again, this is a one possession game when Clifford went out of the game. Okay, this is a ball game when Clifford went out. But am I the only one, Thad, that when you watch this game back, and listen, I was drinking a little bit when I was watching the game live. I was enjoying myself. This is a fun game. I was having a good time with all my buddies. But when I was rewatching this game, I really didn't think Traquan Roberson played all that awful. I mean, listen, there was a great play that was intercepted by Riley Moss in this game, and that was the Riley Moss injury play where he just kind of runs the route for Jahan Dotson, but he wasn't really doing anything different than what Clifford was doing. They still had the screen game going a bit. They still had the QB running game go a little bit in this game. And can we bring up the fact that one of their Mackey Award contenders and Brenton Strange kept dropping the ball, the tight end kept dropping the ball on good throws that were coming on third down? Listen, I'm a big Justin Jacobs supporter. Everybody knows this. There were some times in this game, and we'll talk about this more in depth, but up-tempo really screwed them up at outside linebacker as far as just getting out there to the flat, recognizing plays, whether to carry a route up the seam or to break on a screen or a quick out to the sideline. And the linebackers, and Justin Jacobs included, on a couple third downs, got really out of position and could have given up a first down that would have put Penn State at their own 40 and then given them a fresh set of downs. The drive could have gone on a little bit longer, but a drop from Theo Johnson, 84, their tight end, and Brenton Strange, 86, their tight end, just derailed. I mean, they were good throws. And then there were some times where Traquan Roberson's dropping back. It's an obvious passing down where they need, 8 yards or 7 yards. And the center on Penn State is awful. I mean, he completely whiffs on a Deontay Craig play. You'll be seeing it if you're watching the video version. And then instead of just being like, all right, well, we have a running back in to pass protect, at least he can pick him up, I'm going to still maintain my gap integrity, he starts to chase from behind after Deontay Craig, like he's going to block him in the back. And then what happens? Matt Benson says, all right, green dog blitz time, and then shoots the gap, the wide open gap. The center just vacates. And you watch this game. The right tackle for Penn State was awful. The left guard for Penn State was awful. The right guard from Penn State was awful. The only player that played somewhat decent was left tackle Rasheed Walker, as far as offensive line play goes. And then you mix in all the false starts. You mix in the Kinnick Stadium environment. What do you expect from Traquan Roberson to do? I mean, he had no shot. And he did miss some throws towards the end of the game. he sailed a pass on the run to his left. He's a right-handed quarterback to Jahan Dotson. Sailed it a little bit on a wide open, sort of like a levels concept. But that was after he got clipped by Dane Belton on a blitz in his end zone where he's freaking out and he's frantic. And yeah, listen, a lot of this is set up because Tory Taylor, MVP Tory Taylor, kept pinning him inside the 10-yard line throughout the entire game, and no offense is going to drive 90 yards consistently on Iowa's defense. So I was annoyed by the critiques of Traquan Roberson sucks and it's such a massive downgrade from Clifford when he wasn't really even doing things that much worse than Clifford from just an overall eye test perspective.
A couple things you mentioned. You mentioned the interception by Moss. Guess what? Clifford threw the exact same interception.
Exact same one.
Kerner picked it.
Yeah.
Exact same play. Going deep on a post to Dotson, and the guy reads it, knows what route is coming, gets over the top of it, and picks it off. Exact same play. You talked about the incompletion when he does a great job to avoid Belton in the end zone, gets out to his left and overshoots him. Guess what Clifford did when he avoided a sack in his own end zone? He got away to his left and threw the ball directly to Justin Jacobs. So this idea of, he would have been so much better. As you mentioned, once they got into those passing situations, line one kept jumping offside with false starts. So number one problem, putting them even further behind the sticks. So now they've got to go downfield. And we talk about it all the time. Like, you just can't push the ball downfield consistently against this Iowa team. Maybe you do it a couple times, but you're not going to consistently push the ball downfield. The secondary is far too talented, and they diagnose plays so well. So you're just not going to do that. And you said, key drop by the tight end, especially a chance to get him settled down. And they used him. Hey, he scrambled for a big first down or two. Same thing that Clifford did. And look, Clifford's at this point the better quarterback, but let's not act like Roberson is some,
Scrub
guy that has no pedigree. He would be the top recruit Iowa has ever had at quarterback. One of the best recruits Iowa's ever had at quarterback. So this idea that he's just somebody that's in there that, well, of course we can't win a game with him. And it is difficult when you're thrown in, as a young player on the road. But to think that Clifford was just going to shred this defense, and that when some of the mistakes or some of the problems that this Penn State offense had once Roberson was in there, to think that they would not have happened at all had it been Clifford is just flat out wrong, because we saw mistakes on their offense with Clifford in there. And it just wasn't going to be a perfect game for them from that standpoint, especially when they could not run the ball unless it was with the quarterback. And say it over and over again, if you are one-dimensional against Iowa, that will bite you, because Phil Parker, the magician, is back there he spends that first quarter just seeing what cards you have. He's a poker player. He's just watching, how are you playing? Oh, you had these cards and this is how you're playing it? All right. And he just waits and waits. And then he's like, he figures it out. Here's what you're going to do. And then he jumps you. And now he has all your chips. And Iowa's still undefeated, and Phil Parker's laughing.
If you enjoyed this video, then do me a big favor. Head on over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or blackheartgoldpants.com and listen to the All Eyes Podcast. That's right, the All Eyes Podcast. The All Eyes Podcast is a weekly podcast that I personally host alongside a buddy of mine named Thad Nelson, and it's a podcast centered entirely around Iowa football from sort of a deep dive, film review, X's and O's point of view. We have a lot of fun on there. We try to share as much knowledge as we possibly can to make you a more knowledgeable fan. And if you like the video format for this segment of the podcast, make sure to leave a comment, drop a like, and if you're not subscribed and want to help the channel grow a bit, hitting that subscribe button helps the channel out a ton. That said, I will see you all in a future video. Take it easy.